Welcome to How to Be a Person, a podcast about life with me, your host, Giuliano. Julie, thanks so much for joining me today. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I was really excited to have you on when I saw your profile. This is something like what you do is something that I've been exploring, like mentally exploring recently. And so I'm kind of interested to, hear all about what you do. And so let's just jump right into it. Just tell me a little bit about
Perfect.
what you do and all that, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I am a high performance psychedelic coach. So I combine the tools of coaching and transformation with psychedelic facilitation. Facilitation really just means like, can you safely administer? Do you understand dosage, potential contraindications, how to handle an aberration? But what I find is oftentimes missing the psychedelic space is that like integration and the combination with things that are actually going to support long-term change in your life.
Okay.
Um, I'm probably not someone's like first stop shop. In fact, I routinely hear from the women that I work with, because I do primarily work with women, is like, hey, I've done therapy. I listened to the podcast. I read Let Them. And like, it sounds
Mm.
good. And I feel like I have these moments, like aha moments of realization, awareness, and understanding in session. But then like, I've been paying this like therapist for 2 years and I don't have a lot to show for it.
Mm.
And I'm like, I totally hear you. I get it because that's where I was. So some brains have low neural modulation. They have low neuroplasticity. We see this particularly with brains that are more trending toward anxious, depressed, OCD, PTSD, addiction, which makes sense, right? Because those are patterns of behavior that are habitual, right? So addiction, I'm reaching for the drink. OCD, like in
Yeah.
a the most basic sense, is like or its a purest sense is thought fixation. We think about it as like, I
Mm.
need to turn the doorknob, but really OCD, like at its purest, most base level, is more of a thought pervasion,
Okay.
perseverification. I don't know if that's a word, but I made it one. But anxiety, right? So my anxiety was like thought looping. It was rumination. So if someone just keeps doing the same thing over and over in their brain, what we're seeing is like low entropy, right? Low connection between new parts of our brain. So what psychedelics can do
Mm.
is boost that, right? But if we're just boosting it and we're not following up with integration tools, then we're not going to see that long-term change. So you need both. You need the tools for transformation and the psychedelics to really get like that life-changing impact.
Interesting. So for someone who is going to therapy for a long time, like someone who resonated with what you just said, it
Yeah.
could be that maybe just based on any number of factors, not their fault, that
Yeah.
their neuroplasticity is low, and therefore that's why maybe they're not seeing the changes. While they can like take it in mentally and logically be like, that makes sense, I want to do that, but that's why maybe they're not seeing changes.
Yeah, I love that you said not their fault, because it's not their fault. And that's something I personally really struggle with for a long time, of thinking like, I am working on myself. Like, I know I get it. I want to feel differently. I want to do differently. I want to show up differently, behave differently. But like, it was not happening for me.
Mm.
And so, yeah, for those people who do feel frustrated, it's like nothing works for me. Like, I don't understand. I feel like I have kept my side of the street clean and what I can do. It isn't your fault. You're not broken. I like hate that rhetoric. I don't think you have anything that you like quote unquote need to heal. We just want to get your brain on your side working for you and instead of against you.
Mm. Interesting. And so psychedelic therapy, you're saying, can be what creates neuroplasticity?
So I always want to be super clear and say that I'm not a therapist.
Okay.
So I'm not, and I just, I never, you don't want to purport to be something on the internet that you're not, right?
Sure.
So what I oftentimes find with therapy, and this is my own personal experience as well, because I've done therapy, like I've experienced therapy, it feels really like backward focused. Like, just to give like a quick rundown on me, my dad died when I was little. So every week in therapy, it was like, oh yeah, your dad died, and then your mom like fucked you up, right? Like in the way
Yeah.
that she handled that situation. And it's like, thank you, Deborah. Like, do you want a cookie? I could have told you that. And so people oftentimes come to me and say, like, therapy is really re-traumatizing. Every week we're just like, they're saying these things and asking me these questions that are like, yeah, I know. And sometimes I think that therapists are bound sort of by their own like the I don't want to say like HIPAA is not what I'm trying to say. I know that HIPAA is like confidentiality, but they're sort of their rule book, right? Just like
Yeah.
doctors are bound by whatever their code of ethics is. And so
Yeah.
they are sort of constrained in a way that I'm not. And I think that's
Yeah.
why I'm also more effective. So for instance, like at my retreats where people can come have like a full therapeutic, I say therapeutic dose, I do facilitate in the style that you'd see like in a research paper. Although I'm not a therapist, with one caveat, like a lot of people at the experience are like, can I have a hug? This is really emotional. If I were a therapist, I would have to
Yeah.
say no, like no touching.
Mm,
But because I'm a coach and I use psychedelics as a tool, I can give you a hug, right? And I can bring
mm,
that more humane touch into it. And so psychedelics are really the thing. I was going on a date with this guy, super nice, wasn't my person, but he was trying to figure out what I did. And he goes, okay. So if people just take psychedelics and they don't have the integration tools, that's like if a dude took steroids but didn't go to the gym. And I
mm,
was like, yes, we are understanding each other. Like, it's not going to magically fix you. You still have to do the work, but it's going to give you a better chance of that work working.
mm. Yeah, that makes sense. Something I want to touch on before I keep asking more questions, though, is because I just had a conversation with someone else who used to be a therapist, and now she does coaching. She does both still, but we were kind of talking about the difference between coaching and therapy, and like it kind of feels, and this is not, this is a good thing to me, but it feels like coaching is basically like, and this is not talking about someone being unqualified, but it's just like it's like kind of the wild west of therapy. It's almost like it's a form of therapy, but like you don't have to follow all the rules of therapy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. And I do think too, like whether we're talking about coaching or whether we're talking about therapy, like there are plenty of ones that like are great and there are plenty
Yeah.
of ones that aren't. I have some friends who had amazing experiences in therapy. I have some
Yeah.
friends who are therapists that I like truly believe are amazing. And if I felt like I needed that, I would go see them. And they're like, I mean, anyone on Instagram can see there are plenty of coaches that have absolutely no qualification. They've never gone through any sort of
Yeah.
certification. They don't have any tools. They're just like, I'm a coach and I'm using my life experience to help you, which like
Yeah.
maybe that does, but I think without like the toolbox and like understanding the tools and be able to facilitate the tools, it's like, what are you actually bringing to the table?
Yeah, yeah. I think just like you said, I think there's a place for everyone who's there. And for me, like I did go to therapy for a short amount of time, and it was one of the like most transformative experiences of my life, right? So I definitely am not like anti-therapy in any way. But I do agree with what you said before that there's certain things about it that can be very restrictive. And it's just like going to a doctor, like you said, where there's rules. Like they have to operate within these very specific boxes. And like I think all of us can agree it's like, well, we're not just we don't live in boxes, right? Like we're a whole person. And so I think that while those things can be useful, again, like I said, I definitely, I benefited from it. I do think that there's places for other stuff too, even for people who are coaching from a place of simply life experience, because maybe they have tools to help someone, but they just didn't get a certification from it. It's just what they've learned, and it can be helpful to someone else. But my point is just that like I do think it's interesting how like coaching is kind of like it feels like a form of therapy, but it's not bound by all the rules of therapy. And the other conversation I ended up having with that same person was that like a lot of times therapy seems to be focused on the past, kind of like what you were
Yeah.
saying, where people are like rehashing stuff in their head and what they went through, whereas coaching tends to be focused a little bit more on the future instead.
Future. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. That's a very beautiful distinction, one that like definitely I make a lot when people are like, okay, so explain the difference. But you know, uh, it's true. Like there's a place for everything. I have like no problem with Western medicine or like getting
Yeah.
a prescription if I were to have like an infection or something, right? But
Yeah.
I think about a lot of interactions I've had with Western medicine, whether it be like getting prescribed a prescription in college because I had really bad acid reflux versus like someone helping me fix my diet, or like
Mm,
getting like knee surgery without anyone asking like, okay, well, if you didn't have like a traumatic injury, like, a ski accident or whatever, how did you hurt your knee? And it was the same
yeah.
thing with my anxiety and depression. People are like, here's Prozac, but no one's like, okay,
Mm,
so like how could we maybe heal the root cause of this anxiety and depression? And so
yeah.
I'm not anti anything. I think there's a time and place for everything, but ultimately like my scope, like my lens that I'm looking at everything through is like, can I get to the root cause of something and heal it?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I totally agree with you. Like, I'm not anti anything either. I think everything has its place. And I am very much the same way. It's like, let's just get to the root of this because, I mean, no one would go and like, if they got shot and they're bleeding, want a Band-Aid, right?
No.
Because you're just like, well, I need to stop the bleeding. You're like, okay, but it's because you got shot, right? Like they need to take the bullet out and find out if there's something that needs to get sewed up on the inside, right? Like it's like what you said when they're like, oh, you have anxiety, here's this. You're like, you're all you're treating is the symptom, which again,
Mhm.
in that case, the symptom is I'm bleeding. It's like, okay, yeah, but what are you
But
bleeding
why?
from? You know,
Yeah.
exactly. So it makes a lot of sense. So the question that I'd asked before that I want to make sure I understand correctly, because
Okay.
I know we started talking about therapy because I use the word therapy, but just so I understand, when someone, if someone has low neuroplasticity
Mhm.
through the facilitation of psychedelics that you do with them, does
Mhm.
that increase their neuroplasticity, which then makes those other things more effective?
Yep, psychedelics will increase your neuroplasticity, right? So a lot of my
Uh,
work is with microdosing. So microdosing is a truly sub-perceptual amount of something, right? Not just psychedelics, but I work with psilocybin, like aka magic mushrooms and LSD. So it's taking that small amount. So meaning you're not going to like see the walls melt or like anything that's not really there, right? So you're going to be able to get your kids from the soccer pickup line or operate heavy machinery or go
yeah.
about your job, right? Go about your day, but what is happening is that increase in neuroplasticity, so that when you combine it with tools for integration, and these can be really simple tools, not like I need to go to an ashram and like meditate for 8 hours a day or whatever,
Yeah.
but you're capitalizing on that neuroplasticity. And then those connections are like a little bit more sticky, I like to say. So they're really going, it's
Mm,
not just like a one off, like, oh, look, my brain made a new connection one time. It's like my brain made a new connection. And now that is a connection that I can reach for and like utilize time and time again.
very interesting. So I think one of the things I'm curious about, and you may or may not know the answer to this, but like, it is that because I'm sitting here thinking like, man, I wonder if that's really the issue for most people when it comes to change, is just that they have low and I don't know if that's something you can measure, like the neuroplasticity. Is
So
it something you can measure?
the reason a lot of research around psychedelics is around things with addiction, PTSD, OCD
Okay.
addiction, or anxiety and depression, because they operate similarly. And I like to always come at it from the POV as like, what is functionally happening in your brain?
Okay.
Because we don't know a lot about like, we know about neurotransmitters. And so, people for a long time have been prescribed SSRIs for depression, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of research coming out that says SSRIs are actually just a placebo. And we don't really know what effect serotonin is having in the brain as it relates to depression. So instead of thinking about like
Yeah.
from a neurochemical perspective of what's going on and what is surging and things, I like to look at like what can we measure on fMRI scans? Like what do we actually
Mm,
see, right? And so we do see like low, basically like if you were looking at like one of those old maps of like satellites, like where's the satellite lighting up, that's what's
okay.
happening in your brain. And we can actually map it in our brain of like you can see the lightning bolts or lack thereof of different parts connecting and talking, and we can see the increase in activity with psychedelics. So yes, you can actually measure and see that
Mm,
new parts of your brain are talking. So is that true for most people? I don't know, but I would say a pretty great number of human beings in modern society do experience at some level anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD, or addiction. We don't like PTSD used to be thought of as something for combat veterans, but my god, like the amount of trauma and like abuse and neglect that people experience these days, like it's pretty common, more common than you
mm.
think for someone to have PTSD.
Interesting. Yeah, there was something I wanted to comment on about what you said when it comes to serotonin and things like that. Because I was gonna, I'd started writing a book called How to Get Undepressed, and I was doing research on this, and basically, I found these studies that were talking about the fact that like there is no actual connection, like there's no like discernible connection between the chemicals that everyone says like, oh, you have a chemical imbalance, like that's not a thing, like which is crazy because there are tons. And I remember I was posting about it and so many people were coming at me, were like, it's a
Oh my god,
chemical
I
imbalance,
know.
you can't help it. And I'm like, okay, just go look, right? I'm not saying that this is coming from me, like this is what I believe and this is how I felt for a long time, but I, now that I look at like, look, it's proven, like that whole idea that like it's a chemical imbalance has been completely debunked. And I'm only mentioning it now for people listening so that they can go look into it themselves too.
But that's the thing, like everyone in today's society is like an armchair warrior, like fighting people in the comments because of
Yeah.
something they heard on like social media or they even read in the internet, and there's like no integrity in journalism or reporting,
Mm,
and people just say all sorts of crazy things. So when people want to learn more about psychedelics, I'll tell them what I know from research that I've read, but I also say
mm-hmm.
go look it up yourself. Like the National Health Institute is like a very public database where you can find all this research, and you can find those studies that tell you serotonin is a placebo, like SSRIs are a placebo.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. That's just crazy. It's crazy to think about because there's so many people who, because this is a topic I really care about because I, used to be
Yeah.
super depressed and I'm not anymore. And for me, that was part of the reason why I was going to write that book was because like I found, and I definitely appreciate what you're doing. And I think it all is going to tie together. But for me, part of it came down to just like what the thoughts I was thinking in my head. And obviously I mean, I think that that's correct. I think that like what you allow yourself to think about is going to affect how you feel. Okay. And that like, even if we were able to see, hey, yeah, there's a correlation between the chemicals in your brain and how you're feeling. Like, who is to say that the chemicals are the cause or the effect of the feeling?
Ah, that's the
Right.
point. That's the point.
Right. So
Yep.
even if there was, which there isn't, right? It's been disproven. But even if there was, who could say if it was the cause or the effect? Nobody could. This is the part that's nuts. Okay, is that like we live in this time where so much is being learned, but like so many people feel like the science of everything is just established, and you're like, it's literally not. That's the craziest part. Is like we keep learning more and more about things that we thought we knew everything about, and then we realize, oh my God, we knew nothing about it. And so I think it's just really important as people, and this is part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you, is because I think it's important as people to be open to the idea that we could be wrong about any topic. And this is one of them, right? Like when if you ask anybody, like say like my parents' age, and you mentioned psychedelics or right, psilocybin, all those LSD, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, hippies, drugs, right? Like this,
Mhm.
that's what you're thinking of is like drugs. But and I'm assuming you can speak on this as well, is like what you are doing, correct me if I'm wrong, like would you describe those things that you're giving to people as drugs?
No, I wouldn't. I
Okay.
refer to them as plant medicine. I know that sounds like a woo-woo term, but if we really want to like back it up here to like our parents' time, right? And where we got all this propaganda about like that guy who supposedly took LSD and jumped off the roof and killed himself. That never happened. When we think about like hearing dare propaganda, LSD is going to scramble your brain. That's not
Mm,
true. Like I don't even know what that means unless you're getting a lobotomy and someone's sticking a fork up your nose. Like no one's scrambling shit. But when we think about where this all came from, it was because the government in an MK Ultra experiment, which is now a declassified file, anyone can go look it up. They were unknowingly dosing people in San Francisco with LSD in the 60s to try to see if LSD could be an agent of war and act as a truth serum. Turns out it couldn't, but what it did do was wake a lot of people up and start asking questions about why are we involved in Korea? Why are we involved in Vietnam?
mm,
Like, why are we losing hundreds of thousands of US troops every day in an international conflict that we should not even be a part of? And so when you look at the list of Schedule One substances, right, we look at heroin, and unfortunately, LSD and psilocybin are on that list, but those are the only two substances, LSD and psilocybin, that are Schedule One substances that are literally non-addictive. There's no potential to get addicted to those two
none.
substances. There's none. They are used in the treatment of addiction. Like that's why they're so potent, is because
Yeah.
they're things that can actually break alcoholism. There's so much research around alcoholism in particular in psilocybin and LSD, and they're absolutely non-toxic, meaning there's zero potentiality to kill you. Like you could kill yourself faster obviously drinking alcohol or using heroin or even taking too much Advil than you ever could taking too much
Wow.
LSD or psilocybin. So it's total
Wow.
bullshit why they're on that schedule. And at the end of the day, big pharma can't make any money from them because they do cause root cause healing, not just like a prescription that's going to numb out your symptoms. I mean, I could rant all day. Obviously, I could yap
Yeah.
about this, but I think
Yeah.
it's all bullshit.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you saying it too. I think that because I've said this before on the podcast, like I mean, just I enjoy making money. I love making money. I
Same.
love when I see other people making money. Having a lot of money is great. I believe in like capitalism. Okay, but I also do believe, and I don't know how this fits in, but I do believe that like there's certain things that should not be capitalized on. And one of those things is medicine, right? Like when I think about medicine, it's like it should be about healing people. It should not be about profit. And the problem is you have companies that are built around making money by giving people medicine. And it's one of those things where you're like, okay, like I get it, but like so many of us were born into this system that like we just don't question, right? You go to the doctor to get better. No, you go to the doctor to get medicine, right? Just look at the end of their name. It says MD, which is medical doctor, right? Their job is to give you medicine. It's not to make you better, right? Hopefully if you want the medicine to make you better, great. And again, this is not saying that you shouldn't go to a doctor ever. What I'm saying is that like you when it comes to like things like medicine, we just have to understand what's going on behind the scenes. It doesn't mean you cut it all off. It just means, hey, the whole point of this system that currently exists is to give me medicine. And if the medicine can help me, that's great. But if I'm not actually fixing the root cause of something, well, then I need to do something to actually fix the root cause. And I do believe that that's part of the issue with capitalism, is like having certain industries where the whole point is just to make money, right? Which, again, not a bad thing. But if the whole point is to make money, that means that the incentives for the company and the incentives for the customers are not aligned, right? Because if I'm a patient, I want to get better, right? If they're the company, they want to make money. And if those are not the same, if those incentives are not aligned, that means that it's not in my best interest.
It's not in your best interest, and we also always have to look at, like, is this something where, like, I truly can heal the issue, right? So, like, if you need penicillin, like, yes, taking the
Yeah.
penicillin can get to the root of your, like, bacterial infection, and it
Yes.
will completely be gone. But if it is something like that's much more qualitative and broader and less directed, like a mental health issue, then no, like it's not in your best interest, and someone doesn't actually want to help you heal. They just want to help you mask whatever negative symptom you're experiencing.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate what you do, and I'm sure you probably have an opinion about this, but when I was going to write that book and I was doing all this research, one of the things that I realized was that, like, the word disorder, like, all a disorder is a collection of symptoms, and that it's not an indicator that there's the source is known. And like,
Hmm.
so it's I'm not saying, like, right, because you could say like PTSD, it's caused by a traumatic experience, et cetera, right? That's totally fine. But what I mean, and again, like, right, you can say someone has major depressive disorder, which means like they have all of these symptoms, but it does not mean that the root cause of that thing has been established. And a lot of times we hear, oh, you have this disorder, which sounds like, oh, you have, I mean, I'm trying to think of a better word. You have the flu, right? Or you have
So you have a
COVID,
bacterial infection in
which is
your
something
arm
we
or
can
something.
specifically test for. And look, here's the molecule, right? Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas the other stuff is not like that. It's not. It's just, all it is, hey, we've seen this pattern consistently where people have this collection of symptoms, and you have that collection of symptoms, which means you have this disorder.
Yeah, I was listening to someone, a scientist, speak recently on the Huberman Lab podcast. God love those 3-hour episodes. But he was talking about how, like, that's really true of most things, right? So, like, Down syndrome, yes, you can look at the chromosomes and see, like, okay, this is where the chromosome, and I forget exactly, like, it was an extra chromosome or whatever, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
most things don't have this, like, we want to be able to point to a certain receptor in our brain and turn on that receptor, and then we'll have like an alleviation of whatever else. But he was like, that's also not how nature works. Like, human beings are
Mm,
very dichotomous, and we want to be able to be like on, off, this one thing
yeah.
does that. And it's like, that is not, humans are nature. We're an expression of nature. And it's the same thing when you look at ecosystems or even a tree. It's like, we don't have these little switches, and it really like sends us for a mind whirl and a tumble. But we have to like be looking at, and that's why I love more holistic overall healing as well, right? So it's not just like, it's not just for me psychedelics. I also do infuse a lot of somatic tools, right? Because it is a lot about creating safety in your body, safety when you are triggered. Because at the end of the day, like, you can understand your triggers, but until you
Mm,
attune your body to be able to hold them without freaking the fuck out, like, it doesn't really matter.
yeah.
So yeah, we want the clear yes or no, but like that is just not how it is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, to me, I actually believe that. So I think that the labels can be helpful, right? They can
Yeah.
be validating. Someone goes, "Oh, okay, like there's a pattern to this, right?" Which I totally understand. At the same time, I think that they can also be harmful, and I think that it's, to a certain degree, not, maybe not on purpose, but it is deceptive, because when you hear it, I have this, I have this, I have this, right? You're just saying over and over, I have depression, as an example. When in reality, it's not like, again, it's not something that you can go and be like, oh yeah, look, we found the depression germ inside of you. Like, there it is, right? No, it's just a collection of symptoms. But when someone goes, I have this, it sounds as if it's just something they've got that's outside of their control, when in reality, it's just a description of symptoms. That's all it is. And when that's the case, it means, well, okay. So I think where it goes, where that leads to, is exactly what I told you when people were commenting on my post. No, you're wrong. I was diagnosed. It's a chemical imbalance, and that can't be fixed. And you're like,
Ah, yes. I mean,
ah,
100%. I feel like at some level they also like they don't want to take, and this is like kind of the foundational thing. I feel like if this is the question I get to in all of my discovery calls, like if I can't see that you have this, then I'm not going to work with you, which is essentially radical responsibility. Like you have to be willing and
Mm,
able to take extreme ownership. Not to say that the way people have treated you or the things that you've experienced are your fault, but at the end of the day, like what changes you make and whether you make them are only solely 100% in your power. Even when I did like have a lot of anxiety, I never said I am anxious, because the most important word that you can ever say is whatever comes after I am. I would always say I'm
mm,
experiencing anxiety. I'm experiencing depression, because that's a
mm,
temporary state. And I see so often that people's like labels, and why they can be helpful. So like my brother is actually on the spectrum. Like he was
okay.
diagnosed 30 years ago. He is on the spectrum, but everyone wants to take an autism quiz on the internet these days saying, I have autism. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, I feel so like it totally
Uh,
discounts my brother who is like truly like on the spectrum. And it just becomes an excuse. And I see that especially like in attachment styles, right? Where some girl is like, well,
mm,
I'm anxiously attached, and so I'm gonna call you 30 times and you shouldn't trigger me. It's like, babe, you need to learn to move to secure attachment. This is not an
mm.
excuse for your freaking toxic behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it's Giuliano. I'm just popping in here to say how much I appreciate you being here listening and that I hope you're enjoying the show. The more support that the show gets, the more episodes can be produced. If you can only support by sharing it with others or leaving a review, I appreciate that so much. But if you're the type of person who would like to support the show directly, you can do so by visiting howtobeaperson.co and click support the show, or just click the link in the show notes. Every bit of support means the world to me, and no matter how you choose to support the show, I appreciate you being here listening. I love what I do, and it's because of people like you who listen to the show that I get to keep doing it. Thanks again so much for being here. All right, back to the episode. I love what you said. When you were, hold on, I just lost it. It was
I talk a lot, that's fair.
no, 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 it's okay. Oh yeah, that it's a state, right? That's see, and this is what I'm saying. That's why I love we're having this conversation, is because you don't have depression. You feel depressed, right?
Yes.
And when you feel depressed for an extended amount of time, it's described as depression. Right. And
Yes.
that's the thing, is it's not something that you have. It's a state that you are currently in, and you can get out of that state. Same thing when you're saying, I'm experiencing anxiety. When someone goes, I have anxiety, you're like, right now? Or like, right? Because that's really what it is. Like anxiety is a feeling, right? Are you saying you feel anxious right now? Or are you choosing that like your whole experience is, well, I don't know. It's just going to attack me at random points. I'm going to have anxiety. Again, this is not to discount anyone's experience. My point is that like our perception of our experience affects it. It is very clear, just like you said, with SSRIs being a placebo. Tell me that the way you think doesn't affect the way you actually live your life, right? Because they took it thinking this is going to make me better, and then they feel better. So is it not possible that it's doing the same in the other direction when you go, I have depression, I have anxiety, I have XYZ?
Can we go down like a little scientific like side street?
Please, please.
I loved when you said earlier, like when you were working through your own mental health journey of thinking, like of realizing a lot of it is the quality of my thoughts. Like, what
Yeah.
am I thinking? What am I choosing to put into my brain? And so, what I love so much about psychedelics is when we think about like the thoughts that we have, right? We're talking about the thoughts that are produced from our default mode network. It's a series of interconnected structures. One of those structures is your posterior cingulate cortex, and that's where a lot of your self-referential thinking comes from, especially
Mm.
negative. I like to call her our Regina George. So it's like, you suck, you're not worthy, no one wants to talk to you, like get in,
Uh,
loser, actually don't get in, you're not coming because you're not invited because no one likes you.
mm,
And when we take psychedelics, what we see again in an fMRI scan is those parts of our brain, the blood flow starts to lower to those parts, and so we get more of
mm,
a quiet, we get more of a peace. And I know for myself, one thing that I say all the time to people who are, I'm talking about psychedelics, is I say my mind is a pretty quiet place. And for people who experience anxiety and depression, they're like, what? No, my mind is loud. Like there is chatter, there is like constant feedback. And so
mm,
getting the relief, because I think when we're having those thoughts, we identify with them, like I am those thoughts, or we give those thoughts truth. Just because I thought it means it was real. And we don't know how to like nicely tell her to shut the fuck up.
yeah.
And so just having that peace and then really being able to to interact more with our thoughts. And I do think like the premise of the book is so good. Have you ever read An Untethered Soul?
No, it's on my list though.
great premise. I don't know that the guy does the best job of like, you really have to sit there and be like, what is this guy saying? Okay, yes, okay, got
Okay.
it. But like the idea behind it is great, which is like, you are not your thoughts. You are conscious awareness. Like consciousness is the last thing. Like it's the final frontier. We can't get behind our own consciousness,
Hmm.
but you can see everything in front of it. And once you realize, like, I don't have to engage with those thoughts, life does become a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. I mean, I've had this conversation with a couple other guests before, but it is strange. Like we think we're one thing, but really we're like two things. Like in our head, we picture it's just me, but it's not just you because really the actual you is the you like that can step back and like observe your own thoughts. Like you
Yeah.
said, they're separate from you. It's almost like it's not you, right? You're like you're two things.
Yeah, it's like your truest like capital S self is really your consciousness,
Yeah.
but your experience of your life is what you get identified in. You are not the experience, so you're the experiencer.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Julie, I was wondering because obviously you've been saying a lot of fancy words that I don't know. I don't think we talked about your background, like
Oh, okay.
because right, because you're like I'm a coach, but like a lot of coaches, myself included, are just kind of like coming out of nowhere and like they don't really have like you said, they're kind of just coming from their own experience. So I'm wondering for you, like where are you? Like what is your
Drawing
background? What is
from.
your education? What are you pulling all from?
Okay. I'm pulling from a lot of things because originally when I first got into undergrad, I wanted to go to law school or go to med school and I wanted to do neuroscience research. So I'm really interested in consciousness. I'm really interested in philosophy and psychology and neuroscience. I hate blood. So then I transferred into Latin American studies, which is what
Okay.
I actually have my degree in. I love
Okay.
the culture. I love indigenous practices. Like I'm just so interested in Latin America. And then I went to law school.
Wow.
And I had a few different practice areas where I was like, I just don't like practicing. And then I got a coaching certification from the ICF. And then I started doing different psychedelic facilitation courses, which is like everything from trip sitting, right? So how to safely guide someone through a larger journey to, understanding all the microdosing protocols. So a microdosing protocol is like different schedules that you follow,
Hmm.
because it's not just like definitely don't take it every day. Anyone listening out there, if you're taking it every day, please stop.
Please
It's
stop.
not effective. But it's like a series of on and off days.
Mm,
And then I've also worked with indigenous tribes because again, I do have a lot of respect
yeah.
for like even before I got into this, I've always been obsessed with like the Incas, for example. So anyway, I just
Mm,
really wanted to make sure I was paying proper respect to where these medicines actually came from. And
yeah.
so I've combined all of that, and it's like I only say all that because there's different aspects of all of it that are infused in my work now.
Mm,
Even when I was studying like I mean, especially the neuroscience piece, right? But even when we think about like neocolonialism and things like that, when it comes to like I understand that I'm a white girl facilitating plant medicine. Like I'm very aware of that, and I do my best to like have integrity in that process.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that all makes sense, right? When I'm sitting here, like, where is she pulling all this from? Definitely from where all the places that I would have imagined. um, okay. You mentioned microdosing, but
Yes.
also macrodosing, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell
Mhm.
me about that.
So, microdosing is the process of taking a sub-perceptual amount of a substance. So, you can microdose cannabis, psychedelics, GLP-1s. We hear about that a lot. So, you're going to get the benefits without the impairment. The
Okay.
guy who came up with this phrase his name is Dr. Fadiman, and he coined the term or the phrase transformation without intoxication, right? So,
Mm,
obviously a macro dose in the way that I facilitate is in a mushroom ceremony. It's very intentional, sacred, special experience, but that is a full like you cannot drive. Like you're not leaving. You're not going to use your phone. You probably can't really even see your phone. Like
what's a phone?
what's the phone? Exactly. Phone's not. I had that feeling so big the last time I took myself on an LSD journey. I was like, phones are gross. I hate this. But yeah, so both are really powerful for the purposes of healing. And for some people, I like to say, are you the kind of girl when summer rolls around and you just jump in the pool and you do a cannonball, or are you there over on the stairs like it's cold? If you're more of an it's cold, like you're probably more of a microdoser. If you're jumping
Mm,
cannonballing into the end, like you're probably like want to start off with a ceremony. But it's also like some people know, they come to me like, Julie, I was abused as a kid. My parents are alcoholics. Like, my little self really needs some love. And I know that I want to have this larger experience. Some people
Mm,
are like, hey, Julie, I really want to get off medication. Right. And so titration using microdosing as a supplement is so
mm.
powerful. And that's kind of like my bread and one of my specialties with microdosing is helping people get
Wow.
off medications.
What, like you're saying mental health related medications or
Yeah.
any?
Well, first of all, I no. If you have a heart medication, please stay on it. I don't know what's
Okay, that's, I just want to make sure what we're
Thank you
talking
for
about.
clarifying. Thank you for clarifying. But like SSRIs, which we talked about, are
Yeah.
placebos. SNRIs, which I don't know enough about norepinephrine in particular, but I know a lot of people don't want to be on them.
Hmm.
And then the one I see the most is Adderall, Vyvanse, and things like Strattera, which are stimulant and non-stimulant ADHD medications. Because for so many
Mm,
people who have ADHD, they take these medications, but their superpower is really their creativity. And then they feel super stunted and like angry and
mm,
blocked in creativity when they're on those medications. And they also like have a lot of side effects, like they artificially raise your heart rate quite a bit. So if we can get
mm.
you off of those and onto microdosing protocols to help you manage the symptoms of your ADHD, then like that's a winner.
Man, it kind of, when you were saying that, I was thinking, man, it kind of makes me sad because I wonder how many people are, um, because of the fact that, again, of no fault of their own, but have bought into the whole, like the traditional Western medicine side of things, that they're taking medication for things that they've been told they need to take medication for, and that they're not happy because of that. That kind of makes me sad to think about, but it makes me glad that someone like you is doing what you're doing. Can you describe to someone who doesn't know, myself included, what what the experience is like when you're doing a macro dose of, I guess, any of the things that you would, you know, facilitate?
Yeah. Like, oh, okay. So like what's happening for you when you do it?
Yeah, for someone who's listening who is just like, I've never even considered doing this. What is this even going to be
Okay.
like?
So psychedelics do have a kind of a noetic quality, like meaning that's really can be hard to describe them, but
Okay.
I'm gonna do my best. So I okay, we're gonna go on psilocybin, right? If you want
Okay.
to ask any follow up questions about something else, I'm totally happy to
Okay.
answer
Yeah,
them.
let's
But
do that. Let's do
when
psilocybin.
I facilitate with psilocybin, I use real whole mushrooms. I don't like chocolate. I don't like gummies. And a lot of third party independent lab testing, they'll show you that like those things don't actually have psilocybin or they have like not the amount that they claim. So
Mm,
whatever. I use real mushrooms.
okay.
The measurement depends on like person to person, right? So if like you're totally new and you're like, I just want to see what's happening, I would say like 2 grams is a great place to start. If you're like, I'm here for a hero's dose, I'm like, let's go. So I really like 3.5. That's my sweet spot. But anyway, so you eat the mushroom. They don't taste, even as I say it, like I can feel my mouth kind of like fill with saliva. I'm like, this is not a great taste. But
Mm,
anyway, you eat these mushrooms, they're a little woody, and I facilitate in a therapeutic style, right? So I tell people, okay, like the playlist is so key. The playlist is so key. Music is very important when it comes to particularly psilocybin,
mm,
not so much like LSD, but also yes, ayahuasca. So you lay down, you put on your eye mask, and I like to also use real mushrooms because you start to feel the experience in your mouth, like the psilocybin,
oh,
like the experience of psilocybin, and it sort of starts to feel like a tingle, and you can feel it as it comes down, like in your throat into your stomach and kind of spreads out, and it can feel like a really warm, like beautiful cozy feeling. And so it like activates, I would say like third, sometimes it hits quick third, but 30 to minutes to an hour. If like by an hour you're not feeling anything, I'm like, all right, we're gonna re-talk about this dose because we got to up it a little bit.
mm,
um and it's interesting. Every single journey is different and it
okay.
happens different for every single person. But I can always, and I think maybe I can feel it quicker because I'm so like, we almost have a relationship, me and the mushies,
Mm.
one of my most stable relationships. But yeah, it feels cozy and you can start to like, because you have the eye mask on, the movie starts to play, I like to say, meaning like you start to sort of see things behind the eye mask and in your inner landscape.
Mm,
um and maybe it is taking you back to your childhood, right? And you're seeing like little you and how you have the opportunity to protect and reparent yourself when your parents didn't show up. Maybe it's like I've had people take go through experiences with like past, like let's say you and an ex didn't end on a great terms, right? Like kind of have a clearing conversation, if you will, but in your head, like a
mm,
forgiveness and letting go. Like sometimes one of my last journeys, it was almost like Looney Tunes in there. It was just this like fun movie I was watching. I was like, what is happening? I don't know. It was great. It was just like something I needed, I guess, just to feel a little bit lighter, right? Because I always say you're always going to get exactly what you need, not necessarily exactly what you want.
Mm.
So it lasts a bit, like 4 to 6 hours, and every plant medicine feels a little bit different, but mushies are very mushy, meaning like you want to be warm and like put more blankets on me. I just want to lay there and kind of like watch my inner movie. Whereas LSD is like more energizing. I could go for a walk, like I can draw on the whiteboard and think about these problems and,
Mm.
analyze them. But there are periods of like sadness. There's times when I cry. There's times when I just laugh. Like it's such a beautiful, and when we think about like psychedelics, we oftentimes think about the purge. I think because of TikTok and Instagram, where it's like you go on an ayahuasca retreat, you puke your guts out in a bucket, right? It's like, yes, I mean that could happen with ayahuasca. It's probably not going to happen with a mushy, but purge isn't just puking. A purge is laughing. It is crying. It's shaking, like not epilepsy, but just like moving your body. It's
Yeah.
yawning. You hear about mushroom yawns a lot. So all of these things are purging, and they're just like moving energy outside of your body. So it's a wild experience. It's beautiful. Like I'm so lucky that I get to facilitate it for other people. I'm so lucky I get to experience it. I just have
Yeah.
so much love and appreciation for it.
So here's my thing is like
Oh.
because we've been talking about a lot of this in like, a scientific context.
Mhm.
What is happening there? Do we know what's happening there that's causing all of that?
So we don't know specifically why like you're seeing things,
Yeah.
right? So people kind of want to get hung up on serotonin with psychedelics and depression because psilocybin is its chemical formation is a tryptophan, and so is serotonin. So they both bind
Mm.
at the same place, the 5-HT2A receptors. And so obviously there's something about serotonin that's like producing all these like effects, like the visual and blah 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 blah. But I don't like to view it through that lens, because when we're talking to like a functional perspective of like what is really happening and how is it going to like affect your mental health, especially because we don't know that serotonin plays any. I think it's more about the blood flow direction, right? Of like what
Mm.
parts of our brain are getting fed and which parts of our brains are like getting
Mm.
starved temporarily. But
Interesting.
no, we don't know exactly like what is causing us to see all these things. I did just read a paper about like yawning, and there is something. There's a pathway that's being activated by the psilocybin that causes all the yawns. But when I think about like especially a larger experience and all these things that are happening to me, it's more energetic. It's like your body does keep the score, and your body is moving out energy that is like no longer serving you in some way.
So interesting. So interesting. Okay, I have a couple questions. First of all, because you mentioned ayahuasca, do you do that? Do you facilitate that as well or no?
No, I have
Okay.
experienced it quite a few times. I don't feel I really think you gotta like honor your like whatever's calling to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been called to sit with it. I have no desire to facilitate it.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. And the other thing was we were talking about how these substances are, sit on in the Schedule 1 category. So what's the deal there? If someone's working with you, like, is it
Oh yeah, yeah.
technically what's the deal?
Well,
Legally speaking.
yeah, yeah. For all your listeners, I'm sure they remember, like I remember in high school driving around with pot and being like, I'm gonna get pulled over and I'm gonna go to jail. Right. And now I live in Kansas City, Missouri. But so in Missouri, weed is recreationally legalized, and in Kansas, right across the street, it's not. And we just live in
Mm,
this weird landscape of cannabis where like we have federally, like we're receiving one message, state to state, we're receiving another. And so I think I see psilocybin on the same J curve, right? Where marijuana's kind of already hit the up point of the J curve. I
okay.
see psilocybin like down here. It's creeping up because now we have Oregon, we have Colorado, different city to city and like county to county in California. And then we have even Washington, D.C. You can go into a dispensary and get microdosing gummies, which is kind of crazy to me
Oh,
for psilocybin. So we're in a crazy landscape. The companies I work with that produce like the microdosing capsules are all companies. I just moved from California, so they're all
okay.
my like California, like my California friends, and so they ship to all 50 states. You can't go buy them state to state, but they will ship them to you, and they come in
Okay.
little like capsules. They look like, I wish I had some on my desk. I don't know why I don't, but they look like vitamin capsules. They look like
Okay.
you just got some vitamins on Amazon. So it's
Yeah.
totally cool. And then if you want to have a larger dose and come to one of my retreats, then I will facilitate with you. So am I still kind of in like a legal gray area? Yeah. I mean, I protect myself because I don't sell, distribute, whatever, the microdosing.
But
But
yeah, I was curious because like if someone's listening is like, I want to do this, but wait, am I gonna
like,
do something illegal? Like, yeah, I can see someone thinking that when they hear this.
yeah, I mean, so technically, like, in order to get any sort of like fine for, like, let's say the possession of psilocybin, in most states, it's like 30 grams.
Oh
I
wow.
guarantee you, you are never going to have 30 grams like that unless you are a dealer, like you're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, like
Interesting.
most drug tests, like at a workplace, like the standard drug test does not test for psilocybin. They would
Mm,
have to specifically test you for psilocybin. So
okay.
I totally understand that this is a concern for some people. I
Yeah.
really get that. And if that's like a no for you, then that's okay. But I also think like in 10 years or less, it's going to be a new frontier, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So if someone wants to work with you, what does that look like? Do they work with you only in a certain location, or do you do stuff like via Zoom, or what's the deal?
Most of my work is virtual. So
Okay.
unless we're like at a retreat, I work with people over the computer, and that either looks like, well, my most like DIY program is a text program that gets delivered to you every day via text. You microdose and you follow it is very easy to follow because the text
Okay.
literally tells you every day, this is an on day, this is an off day, here's what you should be doing if it's an on day. Like
Oh,
it's very step by step. And then like at the highest level, it is one-to-one work, and that's where like I am I'm onboarding a new client right now. And so she's someone who wants to get off medications. She's someone who knows there's some stuff going on that like therapy and other modalities, EMDR, all this stuff hasn't touched. And so
mm,
when like titration is a big one that I only will do one-to-one because it's a very customized process. And you also
yeah.
have to be super honest in the process with yourself and with me.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy to get off medications. It's really not easy to get off, those SSRIs, because what happens with SSRI use is like your body actually stops producing it because you're supplementing it. And that's why
Mm,
people have these really like this hard time getting off it. I mean, Vyvanse and Adderall are some of the hardest things to get off because it's like, it's
wow.
addicting. It's an
Yeah.
amphetamine. They're amphetamines. Like
Sorry,
it
it's
is.
so crazy. It's so crazy that like what you're talking about, these substances are the ones that are Schedule 1 substances that when in reality they're not addictive and but you basically can't hurt yourself taking them.
No, you
Yet you
can't.
have these other ones that are like they're just freely given to people and they're addictive and actually could kill you. Like people kill themselves with them. Like this is crazy.
It is.
It
It's
feels so
scary.
backwards.
That's also why like we have to be doing this, like we have regular check-ins and calls, and I'm taking you through more in-depth processes because
Yeah.
it's a process to get off. So you're right, like
Yeah.
it's scary and it's intense and it's easy. Doctors are taught to get you on, but no doctor is taught to get you off.
Mm,
And that's why, I mean, just like even if you never want to like ever hear from me again, but you want to get off of medication, I can almost guarantee you your doctor, if you ask them that you want to get off, they're going to give you a month-long plan, and it's just going to be like 50%, 50%, have it, have it, have it. That is not long enough. Don't follow their plan. Extend their plan.
it's good to know. So, um, one of the things I was wondering about was what you were talking about was like going through these experiences, but then also having the tools afterwards, right? The
Yes.
actual integration. I know that we're kind of running a little bit out of time, but can we hit on like what some of that integration looks like? Because I think for most people listening, they're like, well, okay, so what does that look like? What am I doing afterwards?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So specifically for a larger journey.
Well, I guess however you help people. I don't like if you're because you're I'm assuming based on what you said that the microdosing is more kind of just a long term, like, hey, you're microdosing and I'm giving you little things about what to do each day.
So integration is in both. You got to integrate both, and
Okay.
that's actually what I think is missing. Like when we can tie the thread all the way back to the beginning of our
Yeah,
conversation with
please.
therapy. There's no integration, right? You have these. Here's a great example. I'm a therapist and I'm talking to this girl and she has this big aha moment. Oh my God, my boyfriend is an asshole. I do need to break up with him. Cool. She comes back to session next week. How did the breakup conversation go? We're going to Mexico. It's like, what are you talking about?
Mm,
Why? Because she didn't have the support to embody her breakthrough.
mm,
Integration are the tools that allow you to embody your awareness, because it
mm,
doesn't matter if you know that you're anxiously attached, if you're still continuing to choose those behaviors and those thought loops time and time again. You have to break them and choose something new.
yeah.
So, integration after a big journey is like there's a whole day of integration at my retreats where I built out specific exercises to make sure that all the downloads, the clarity, the next steps, everything that you felt really good about in the journey becomes your reality, your lived experience, and how we're going to actually make that happen. The same with microdosing, right? I always tell people my goal with you and microdosing is not for you to microdose all the time for the rest of your life. My goal is for you to experience the magic of microdosing even on your off days. How do we do that? By using integration tools. And so like some great ones are I mean, it can be really simple, right? It could be journaling, it could be meditating, it could be going for a walk without your phone. Is like a very underrated free thing that everyone should be doing.
Interesting.
It can also look like tools of hypnosis, right? Or like other processes in coaching, EFT tapping. There are a bunch of different tools to use. Very simple ones that could be more complex depending on like what your goal is. But it's just really important that you're doing something that is positively affecting the connections you want to make while you're microdosing, right? So we want to make more connections that come through a practice of mindfulness. We don't want to make more connections that come through scrolling, right? So it's looking at the behaviors, like what are we choosing to do while we're microdosing? Microdosing can be a great time to have a hard conversation and lean into like more love and compassion with that person. So, there's a lot of different ways you can
yeah. Well, so integration is really just, hey, this is the stuff that you should be doing anyway, but because you're either microdosing or you went on the a bigger journey, now all these things are going to stick better, and so like now's the time to do it.
Now is the time to do it. Yes, let's get that on a sticker.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I feel like we could probably talk for another couple hours because I have so many questions, but I feel like maybe I'll have to have you on again or something like that. But Julie, this has been awesome. For anybody that is listening that wants to connect with you, whether it's on social media or just in general because they want to take advantage of your services, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, I just do have to say, I have a lot of conversations, and this one was definitely one of my favorites. So thank you for being such a great. I loved everything that you asked and everything we talked about. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
You can find my website. It's Julie Cyvonne. It's just like my name.com. It's same Julie Cyvonne on Instagram. And if you are interested in this conversation and you're like, I wonder if microdosing is even for me, you can DM me the word journey and a free quiz will come up. It's like 11 questions and it'll tell you very honestly if it is for you, if it's absolutely not for you because of some kind of contraindication, or if it's like, it might be for you, but it's worth having more of a conversation. So save yourself some time and just like take the quiz and find out.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Great. Well, I'll be sure to, I'll put the link in the show notes so anybody listening can go and click over to your website. And then also obviously everyone can connect with you on social media. I agree with you. This has been an awesome conversation. I'm looking forward to maybe another one in the future. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you entertaining all of my questions because I just had all these ones popping up in my head. But yeah, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, Julie.
Thank you too.
Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who'd appreciate it. For everything I have to offer, visit howtobeaperson.co.